Folks, there's a problem with the left, and I'm not simply saying that because I am the subject of criticism on the left. No. We can't win any confrontation with the far right unless this changes, because the left has alienated the average person, which in this case is me, with a focus on niche, boutique issues. And it needs to focus on outreach specifically towards the white working class, a term I've adopted in this context because it sounds less racist than just saying white people, but actually it is just racism mixed with a little bit of classism, actually. But don't worry, there's enough plausible deniability to gaslight anyone that points that out. See, we can't let partisanship divide us. Hey, you ever notice that a lot of people say that kind of stuff and they say it right and then they follow it up with some of the wackest horseshit you've ever heard in your entire life? Just some real garbage brain shit from an idea dumpster. Ideas so fundamentally without value that you throw them out, you can't even recycle them. You just throw them right in the dumpster. And here's the thing about the left. Can we talk for a minute about the left, please? Why is nobody talking about the left? There's something I simply must say about the left. My thought on the subject is, fuck the left. I don't care about the left. I don't owe it my loyalty. Neither do you. The left isn't anything. It's not a group of people. It's not a tendency. It's not an ideology. The left is not even like a coherent set of goals or policies. The left does not exist, aside from as a rhetorical device used to mean like anybody who considers themselves on the left, or anybody who considers themselves on the left would consider to be like their pals, their buddies. There is no consistent set of beliefs that unites people on the left. No economic theory, no social policy, no guiding principle. You'll hear the term used to describe everything from hardcore anarchist revolutionaries to neoliberal ghouls who at least don't actively seem to want to feed gay people into a wood chipper right now. And like everything in between that too. And perceptive viewers might notice from the examples that I just gave, any such coalition is doomed. Those groups can work together over common goals, but also they have mutually exclusive goals that at some point they're going to need to resolve. And that's good. To be clear, that's a good part about that. That's a good job. That's part of coalition building. You set aside your disagreements, temporarily if need be, to achieve something desirable to all parties. But at some point, you got to go, hey, there's also stuff we disagree about. What are you going to do? And then have a big argument. There are degrees of disagreement, though. There are some disagreements which, although we might not ever be able to resolve, we should by no means tolerate. Disagreements whose effects are too fundamental, too immediate, and too costly to ignore in the service of cooperation. Like, for example, if you wanted to kill Batman, you could not ally yourself with Robin, because he's not going to support you, you know? Even if you agree with Robin on a lot of stuff, you're going to come into conflict about the whole Batman issue. Now, where you draw that line is going to vary. I'm not going to give you some prescriptive commandments about who you are and who you are not allowed to cooperate with. I'm not an organizer. I'm a blowhard. I have a YouTube channel. I am the least entitled person to an opinion on anything. That shit's complicated and difficult. I'm in no position to tell you where the line is, you know? But one thing, which sits comfortably on the do not tolerate side of the line, is anything less than full-throated active support for the well-being, equality, and autonomy of any political minority. Compromising on that is not only, and I don't want to overstate my point here, but evil, but also foolish, tactically speaking. Because, like, if you're in a situation where it isn't tactically foolish, if you have a goal where it makes strategic sense to throw a political minority under the bus, then probably what's happening there is your goal sucks. You have an asshole goal for shitty asshole guys that an asshole might have. Concern trolling for the well-being of the left invariably presents itself as the moderate, sensible, popular position. Anything these people don't like is too unrealistic, too utopian. You'll never sell it to the normies. Frustratingly, this type of rhetoric is used even when the position of the people using it is less popular or less credible, or in some cases, flat-out trash brain garbage for idea babies to piss and shit their brain diapers with. These people don't argue that their position is more logical or morally superior, just that it's the best we can do right now. So it's better than nothing, right? Like, you know, if you can't get on board with this, then you're just a saboteur, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. You're gatekeeping, you're wrecking. When this logic is weaponized against political minorities, it usually goes something like this. Yeah, like I agree, obviously, with what you're saying. In theory, in a perfect world, it's just right now, in this political climate, it's very much, it's too complicated, you know? It's so controversial what you're saying, even though, again, I totally get it. It's just most people won't. And like, also, can I say also, like, why are we spending so much energy on the needs of such a small group of people when it's going to turn off the majority citation needed? We got to think big picture here. And that makes a certain surface level sense to a particular type of asshole. But there are some problems with this argument. Firstly, and this should go without saying, it's cowardly. It's the type of argument you can only make if you're a complete spineless chicken shit, a moral infant. If you make this type of argument, I'm forced to assume you are, at this moment, concealing that you've been bitten by a zombie. Secondly, consider this little thought experiment. I got a little brain tickler for you here. Whose support do you think will be more valuable for you? People whose material well-being specifically depends on your success? Or people who don't really give a shit either way? People are so disinterested that the slightest discomfort will stop them from engaging in the issue whatsoever. Thirdly, the whole premise rests on two assumptions, of which at least one is always total horseshit. That the rights of the political minority in question are some sort of highly unpopular third-rail position, and this is usually justified by, like, a conversation they claim they had with some sort of archetypical common man. They talked with their bus driver about gender self-ID, and they didn't get it, so, like, how can you expect the working class to understand such ideas? Because the second assumption is, of course, that the ignorant swine who represent your base cannot have their inherently self-interested and bigoted minds changed. Of course, we, the more sophisticated and intelligent political class, can understand such highfalutin ideas like, for example, that it's bad to be racist. But the average person is a kind of soulless, thoughtless machine. They exclusively seek base pleasure and avoid discomfort. They're incapable of reason or empathy or any higher form of thought, really, and we're like unto gods to them. We must shepherd them carefully, lest our enlightened thinking move too fast, frightening and confusing their primitive, superstitious little minds. You see, you dumb utopian baby, if we fight for something so unpopular or out there, as the logic goes, it hurts the broader and more achievable goals of the left. You know, the ones I support, not the ones you support, because we have to be willing to compromise. I don't want to alarm you, but the far right, they're on the verge of winning. They're one election away from taking the whole pot. Okay, they're gaining momentum every day, and the only way to stop them now, I hate to say it, I really do, is to do the things that they're asking for, is to specifically do the things that they're agitating for. That's the only way to stop them. They want us to do that because it would stop them and make them less powerful. And, you know, plus, like, if they do win, like, you know, I'm white, so if they want to do racist stuff, I would bet. These compromises, of course, are always in service of power, in service of the status quo, in service to the exact structures we are meant to be opposing by making these compromises. It never works in the other direction. Never is the more moderate left asked to adopt a more radical position based on its popularity, feasibility, or outright necessity. We're meant to dismiss allies who agree with our positions in favor of courting allies who do not. Because maybe, if we do everything they ask for, they'll get on our side. That's what it means to get someone on your side, by the way. When you do something differently, because that's what they wanted. It means you changed their mind. We are asked to make this bargain constantly, to ignore some hideous injustice because, they claim, to focus on it necessarily distracts from all others. So you end up in this shell game scenario where the one true meaningful injustice is always the one you're not putting every iota of your effort into. And in order to fix it, you just got to ignore every other problem in the world. Those are all distractions. And this isn't a new technique. Throughout history, wherever there have been people fighting for any sort of social justice, equality, freedom from oppression, no matter how just their cause, you can find examples of that movement hypocritically excluding others in betrayal of their own principles. Whether it's white women within the suffragette movement refusing to stand in solidarity with women of color, to modern-day quote-unquote anti-imperialists who deride and ridicule the land back movement without bothering to do the barest iota of research, just crack open Wikipedia and just really even look at what the definition of the term is, really understand what the thing that they're criticizing, just do the bare minimum, just really even look into any of it. And this is the problem that intersectional analysis was intended to help us study, to create the understanding that various forms of oppression intersect, creating unique material conditions and forms of oppression for those people who unfortunately find themselves within that intersection. beyond merely simply the combined effects of like two discrete types of oppression, a new symbiotic oppression is made. What people don't talk about as much is how these forms of oppression mutually reinforce one another. Easy example you've heard a million times, right? Racism enforces capitalism. Prejudice against racialized people is projected onto the poor and lower class and vice versa. It's an easy way for bourgeois interests to divide workers and create scapegoats for their own excesses. And also, you know, just directly take a bunch of people's shit. Just take it and have it and own it. Then if anybody gets mad at them, they can go, but no, you're not poor because of me, because I have all the money. You're poor because Jews have bad money DNA, probably is what it is. And also, one time at the supermarket, I saw a black woman buy a lobster with a food stamp, so probably that's why you're poor. Obviously, racism would still be bad, whether or not it intersected with capitalism, and capitalism would likewise be bad in any sort of hypothetical alternate reality scenario where it developed without racism. Both of these things would be problems that required solving without the other, but in a world where both exist, like this one, Earth, you have to fight both. Otherwise, the struggle against either is incomplete. Here's another example for you. Transmisogyny reinforces misogyny classic. The ways that trans women's bodies and behaviors are scrutinized and demonized are then ported from the trans engine to the cis engine, which actually is pretty easy because that's the engine it was developed for, and used to control the bodies and behaviors of cis women. Cis women become the collateral damage in attempts to stop trans women from existing and need to conform to cis heteronormative standards to demonstrate their womanhoodliness. Cut your hair too short or have too many muscles and you might not be allowed to piss anymore or run in a race. Because what if you're a secret trans in disguise? Better take your rights away, just in case. Simultaneously, trans women are themselves the collateral damage in patriarchal attempts to control cis women, to firmly establish the boundaries of the feminine and police the bodies and identities of all kinds of different women. Some tall, some short, some of them have swords. All women. In both of these examples, you cannot fight one problem without fighting the other. If you try, you're just putting it in another place for it to get stronger later and come back and get you. You're not dismantling an oppressive structure. You're just asking for permission to be let into the oppressing group. And I can't exactly judge anyone for that. I am the beneficiary of all oppression in the world. But I would like to extend a word of caution, if I may. If you do manage to get put into the in-group, that's not going to last forever. Helping the people who are oppressing you now cook up a new way to oppress someone else, you can imagine how that plan might backfire, right? Ironically, the right seems to understand this better than the left sometimes, but like in the backwards brain way that they don't really understand anything. They'll label any attempt to advocate for marginalized people as communist, as an evil Marxist plot. Like, there's a famous photo of a shithead in Little Rock, Arkansas, protesting school integration in 1959, holding up a sign that reads, "Race mixing is communism." While I doubt that this man had a robust knowledge of communist theory or a rich understanding of the historical and material reality of white supremacy, and I do disagree with the premise that race mixing is communism, he's not wrong to make the connection, right? What his pea brain has figured out is, you know, if you're going to advocate for some people to be equal, it's a slippery slope towards all people becoming equal. It's just that, like, that would be good. And he thinks it's bad because he's a shithead. This racist dipshit understood that any victory for Black Americans, anything which brings them closer towards freedom and equality, weakens the apparatus used to also deny freedom and equality to the working class. Because many working class people are themselves Black, but also because the methods and justifications used to subdue both groups share a great deal of ideological common ground. Again, he just thought that was cool. Like, he thought it's cool that some people are oppressed on account of the shitheadedness. People like Anna will argue that identitarian concerns distract from economic issues.
I'm done with the identitarian garbage. I'm done with it. It is a giant distraction. The left, the people who are supposed to be fighting for a better economic system, better economic conditions, better working conditions, all of that stuff pushed aside. Let's focus on the identitarian stuff.
That they divide the working class.
And the identitarian stuff by nature divides us and leads to more fights, more conflict, even among us. But that's the point.
But like, okay, let's think that through for a second. Let's work that out in our brains. If you were excluded from the full and equal participation in the world on the basis of identity, say race or gender, sexuality, disability, left-handedness, whether or not you like Naruto, whatever, do you see how that quickly becomes an economic issue? Like, if people of one identity are allowed to be in control of everything and use that control to subjugate another, how that might quickly become an economic problem for the people not in control. Like, for example, they would have worse job prospects and at those jobs have worse working conditions, harder time building cash liquidity or owning a home or not being in prison or enslaved or murdered. And even if they were murdered, like, would they even look for their bodies? Like, if you knew where their bodies were, would the government even go there to look for them? Like, if someone could say, like, hey, we have reasonable suspicion that there's some bodies, say, in a landfill would be one place they might be, then would the government even go look? Do you see how all of these things could be affected by whether or not you are considered a subhuman, inferior, second-class citizen? How that might actually have a pretty big financial impact on you. They do kind of acknowledge this by talking about how we have to work towards making sure that everybody has equal rights and equal opportunities and equal access to housing. And it's just like the cultural stuff that they think is pointless, right?
We shot a show, I don't know if you guys are ever gonna see it, we shot a pilot just this weekend with a mixed Republican and Democratic family, okay? I asked them about trans rights, should they have the same rights, same exact rights in housing, employment, etc. Every one of them, including hardcore Trump people, were like, yes, they should have the same exact rights.
Yeah, exactly.
When I asked about this topic, every one of them, except one, 6 out of 7, were like, no, not competing in sports.
Where do you think the denial of those economic rights comes from in the first place? Like, what do you think caused people to want to do that? Do you think maybe that, like, if you spend a lot of time demonizing a group of people and portraying them as inherently shitty, predatory monster goblins, that eventually that might lead you to want to take away some of those equal rights? And how maybe if you spend your time complaining that anyone attempting to change those cultural narratives is a hysterical baby person, you might be contributing to that?
But idiot activists, yes, I just called you an idiot. Activists go in there and go, no, I'm gonna fall right into that trap and I'm gonna fight on the only losing ground we have so we can elect more Republicans so they can pass more anti-LGBT laws.
The people who argue that it is divisive to be united with one another come in two general varieties. Either they're right-wing grifters who want to third-position themselves into leftist spaces to spread their dipshit ideas around, or they're complete rubes, useful dolts, easy marks for the aforementioned grifters. And it is pretty useless to speculate which one any given person is, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram, but I do have a rubric I like to use in these situations, a little test I use to determine if people are arguing in bad faith. When their position is criticized, do they A, defend their position, explaining their logic, or ignore the criticism, or B, whine about how it's unfair that people are disagreeing with them at all and they kick up a big stink about it. People saying they're wrong is actually them being silenced, and making them be silent about disagreeing with you is what free speech means. But them disagreeing with you obviously shows that they don't tolerate disagreement. So they shouldn't be allowed to say that they don't agree, because that's not free speech. And it is a very handy rhetorical strategy because it means you never have to defend your positions. When challenged, you can retreat to a grandstanding speech about the importance of open debate and civil dialogue. You can tut-tut and finger wag about how rude everyone else is, and then claim that they're the ones scolding you? Like, it feels to me like the worst time to accuse someone of scolding you would be right after you gave them an etiquette lesson and lectured them about how to disagree civilly. It seems like a scoldy thing to do. To whine and cry and kick and stamp your feet about everybody won't let you disagree. Nobody these days will tolerate disagreements, but like, nah, you can disagree. By all means, believe whatever you want to believe. It's just that the thing you believe means you're a big doo-doo dum-dum. That's my belief. It's an open dialogue. Which brings me back to the left. I ask you now, of what use is being part of the left? My understanding was that the left represented a loose coalition of people whose ideas and values I agreed with, people who wanted and fought for the same things I want. If, in order to succeed, that group must allow people whose ideas and values are in direct contrast to the goals we want to pursue, the question must be asked, of what use is this thing? Why protect it? A lot of people would say it's because to stop the far right, it's the only way to do it is we got to let everybody in so we can stop the far right. But I think a more effective strategy for fighting the far right, in my opinion, would be not letting them on your side. Like we got to drift to the right in order to protect ourselves from the right. You know? Sometimes you say something and you think, oh man, am I strawmanning the position of the people that I'm complaining about? And then they just fucking tweet it, you know? Then they just fucking tweet it. They just X it out to all of their followers on X. I just think that if we're trying to fight the far right, it would be helpful to not form consensus with them on account of they want to kill a bunch of people and take away a bunch of human rights. And that really isn't the type of thing I want to compromise about. Like, there's really nothing that could make that compromise worth it for me, you know? And so, like, if that divides the left, I can live with that. Divide it up, baby. Cut that baby down the middle. I don't care who the left's true mother is. I don't care. Fucking balkanize the left. Who gives a shit? This isn't team sports. I don't care about my team winning. You know, what I care about is the goals that I wish to pursue. And if we must abandon those goals in order for the left to win, then the left is a dead project, standing in the way of the things that I want. So, you know, in conclusion, be wary of anyone who tells you that by expressing your opinions, you have silenced theirs. That by advocating for solidarity, you are sowing division. That by disagreeing with them, you have somehow not allowed for the possibility of disagreement. That they know better than you the rate of progress that other people are willing to accept. That they represent normal people, the silent majority, the default human opinion, while you are aberrant and strange. Your ideas are off-putting and impossible to communicate. Everyone else, the normal people out there, like me, are too stupid to understand those ideas. I know, because I go out and I talk to people sometimes. And you're stupid if you think that people will understand your smart ideas. Basically, anybody who tells you that the appropriate way to make progress is indistinguishable from the lazy, thoughtless positions of the reactionaries they claim to be the only ones positioned to defeat. Thank you for watching my video. And also, just a guess, thank you for also having an extremely chill and civil comment section on this one. Go ahead and like it and subscribe to me. And also, I do have a Patreon. I don't know what you heard, but it's at patreon.com/thoughtslime, where you can pay me to do this. Isn't that your dream? Buy a t-shirt from me. I have several t-shirts at thoughtslimeshop.com. You don't even got to remember these links. They're all in the description. How could anyone say I don't represent the average person? I'm the most normalist one there is.